Welcome to the Brevard News Focus. My name is Kevin Jeffrey, your moderator for segment 3 of our topic, the plight of the Brevard County Fire and Rescue. There are some graphic things in nature being discussed here. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome again to Brevard News. This is the third segment of our installment in the plight of the Brevard County Fire and Rescue. And we want to look at a few things. It's believed that the Brevard County Fire and Rescue is the only county department not to receive a raise this year, 2024. There is currently an amendment on the ballot actually to increase or to raise the county commissioner's salary by more than 70%. And a survey from out of Orlando said that 88% of the people said that they would actually pay more taxes for the firefighters to get raises. So this is really a problem, and we talked about this earlier on our podcast, and we've got a lot of responses from many families, the firefighter families, and I want to read you a couple of them. This person, and we won't say the name, said this: "We recently moved out of Brevard to a neighboring county where my husband took a paramedic job, paying way over what he was making in Brevard after years of service. While in Brevard, he worked an average of 165 to 190 hours biweekly." And then you have this from another writer who said, "Ms. Delaney, your comment that the BCFR employees needed to work 80 to 100 hours extra compared to other departments. Actually, we need to work up to, or in some cases, over 1,000 hours extra annually just to make comparable wages of surrounding surrounding fire operations." She says, "Excellent. That was right. The wages are absolute garbage. It's disgusting. My husband has to work extra overtime just to make a living for our family." Wow. I mean, is that hyperbole?
Well, it would be on an individual basis. I mean, you're asking, do we have overtime? Yes. Do we have the opportunity to make those numbers? I don't have those numbers in front of me, but we do work overtime, and it does take overtime to meet the comparables of other departments. That's not a secret. That's been part of the landscape of Brevard County for years.
As it happened, I was just in one of the local coffee shops yesterday, or day before yesterday on Friday, and I ran into a lady that works for the Orange County Fire and Rescue. And she told me that she lives actually here in Titusville. And I asked her, does she consider working for the Brevard County Fire and Rescue? And she kind of laughed. She said, "No, I didn't. I like living in Titusville," but she works over in Orange County, but she complains that they're not making much more in Orange County than they're making here. And so it's really an issue that you guys have. And Katie, you've been on top of this. What seems to be the problem and the impasse that is going on between the firefighters and Brevard County?
Well, from what I've been seeing, it's, of course, wages, but the big pieces are the work-life balance and, you know, the county and the union, they have been working off of these comparables that everybody's agreed upon, yet the county won't come anywhere near what the comparables are.
And why? What's the problem?
That's the million-dollar question.
So the question that I have is that I look at my property taxes, of which I pay quite a bit, and I see a segment on there for Brevard County Fire and Rescue.
Right.
Where is the money going?
That's a great question.
Why do we not know that?
Unfortunately, like we've been saying, the way that this county moves the money around, it's like we're borrowing from Peter to pay Paul all over the place.
What do you mean move the money around? Well, how are they moving it around? What are they doing?
Well, every so often at different county commission meetings, you'll see an amendment to the budget, and money is moved around into different pots. And I mean, you have to be a forensic accountant to really see the whole picture of this.
So is this kind of like the federal government where they are taking money that is allocated toward a certain uh, situation like Social Security and using it for other purposes?
It looks to be that way.
And so what can we do to stop this?
Well, I personally would love to see a forensic audit done on our county budget.
And so what would that produce?
So it would show us exactly where the money is going.
And so we would find out where the money that is being allocated to fire and rescue is actually going.
Absolutely.
Do you have any suspicions as to where it's going?
I think that, like I said, it's just continue. I hate to say it this way, but it's almost like a Ponzi scheme. Like you're just there. It's from an outsider looking in. It's hard when you're on the outside looking in. You only get certain pieces of the information, and that's why I'm excited to get inside this job because I want to see what's going on in the background.
Do you think that's why a
And
lot of people didn't want you? They didn't want you to see what was going on behind the scenes?
definitely a possibility.
So Frank Abate, now he's been giving quite a few raises. As we said, the county commissioners are doing pretty good themselves. They're trying to get more money. Is this unreasonable to believe that we can't pay our first responders what they need in order to be able to have the right and proper services in the county?
Yes, it's completely unreasonable. When our county manager is making close to $300,000 a year, our county attorney is making, over $250,000 a year. Commissioners are, making $60,000 a year. The commissioner's staff, which I just found out this piece, making between $70,000 and $95,000 a year. I mean, these salaries are outrageous, and the fact that our public safety officers, our firefighters, people who show up to save our lives, sometimes at the expense of their own, that we can't get these people paid comparable to the other places around us.
Well,
It's
really
completely
interesting. A
wrong.
lot of jobs have become so lucrative is you don't really need to go into the private sector anymore. It didn't used to be that way. The government officials used to be called public servants. They
Right.
understood that there was a service that they were giving. You guys, so you have been in contract negotiations with the county for how long?
Since January 12th.
And since January, you have now lost, we're at 90 different people and counting, right? And that would include paramedics and mostly people in the field, right?
We call them field personnel, including 10 retirements.
How is that impacting you?
Well, to date, we've lost 90 people and we've hired 73 to 77 in the same period of time. And our next new hire class won't be until 2025. So what you have is what we've called as the brain drain. But when you get into that revolving door, a lot of the issues come into morale as a metric, repetitive training, lost costs, lack of seniority. Those type of things become really problematic and affect our ability to provide services because of the lack of experience. This is one of those jobs where there's a gut to it. There's an experience factor to it. It's unmeasurable by a 1 through 10, but there is a metric to it. And when you get into these type of numbers, expected to have 100 people, 20% of our workforce. That affects the ability, it affects our workforce, and realistically, it affects the ability to have a person in that seat. And in Brevard County, it's no secret, this is something that's been ongoing, and you can look back at some of the other opportunities is to make the system happen. On occasion, we have to mandate someone. Basically, they're told that you can't go home and you will be working another 24-hour shift or 12. And we trying to work out mechanisms, and we have a good rapport with our management trying to work through this, but we need a light at the end of the tunnel. Like, this is perpetual.
So there's a mandatory overtime, right?
Yes.
So it's possible that a firefighter or a paramedic could be on the job for 3 days in a row?
No. 2
days in a row?
2 days in a row, 48 hours. The contract, the CBA, the agreeable contract between us has parameters that doesn't prevent that type of situation. Like, if you're already doing something, you're not going to get it again. The other aspect of that is there's so many opportunities that the field that can be mandated is sometimes very finite.
So so tell me, what is the optimum as far as the experience level? What is the metrics that would actually tell you that you're in a good place from an experience level? Is it the number of years or the average age? What makes for a good experience, Brevard County Fire and Rescue?
The good experience fire rescue is to have enough bodies to meet all the needs and the positions and have them trained. So as you put people in, they're going to have to elevate and push it up. I couldn't tell you what those numbers are. We have so many vacancies and so many job opportunities that we don't fulfill that you would have to start somewhere. You would have to give me the equation, and then I would have to tell you where that goes. But you're asking me way too many variables and not enough
But how do I see it? As a member of the public, how do I see that you guys are going through a crisis
We're
here?
doing so much more with less. We have fire
So I
trucks that
don't
break
see
down
it?
on fires. You don't see it. You don't see it from your landscape. Like you call 911, something happens. Yes, something will happen every single time. A truck will respond. These things will occur every single time, without fail. Absolutely. What is the mechanism between calling 911 and how does that happen? That's in a vacuum. That's in our world, and you're giving us the opportunity to speak. We've done public comments. We've tried to put that out there in the world, and you're giving us another avenue to do so. And we're restrained by what we're allowed to say because of what we are with the union. But yeah, it happens at a cost, and that cost is wear and tear. The cost is failed apparatus. The cost is huge. And to get into that, you would have to start creating parameters. We could talk for hours on one aspect. You pick one, we could talk about it. But it would require data sets. It would require public records. It would require job tasks. It would require a lot more than just saying we have an issue, other than the fact that we are doing so much more with so much less.
But suffice it to say, experience matters.
Absolutely.
I think too a good way to put it out there for the people is what is the average time in service that would be a healthy fire department? Is it the average time in service 10 years or, you know,
Well, the career is starting off at 25 years, so you would think that there would be some sort of graduation on what it needs to be, and as you expand, the problem with that equation that you just mentioned is we need more expansion. Depending on the study you read, we're down 6 to 8 ambulances as it is. So when you talk about, hey, we need to put these people in here, are you taking account for the expansion of services from the 2020 census of how many more people move into Brevard County? It's never ending. It's not just a parameter of A and B. It's a parameter of A, B on today, and then tomorrow it's going to be C to D.
So it's just keeping your head above water.
We're not
It's just
doing
a
that.
constant- So you're drowning now.
Absolutely.
Your head's not even above water.
Well, depending on your point of view, the head's above water if you're someone who calls 911 and someone shows up and we do the best we can with the services provided and the resources available absolutely every time. But those systems and those resources and those outcomes are waning to the
But doing
detriment of our
it and
people.
the toll that it takes on the people who are doing it,
Bingo.
that's the issue, right?
Bingo, yes, sir. That's it right there. The human toll is that unmeasurable metric that I think is the continuity between everything we've discussed.
because y'all aren't robots. And eventually there is a point where the system will fail. And that's not because you guys aren't excellent. It's because a human can only take so much.
A classic example. So we've been spared in Brevard County some catastrophic event like a hurricane, direct hit from a hurricane, or some catastrophic event happens. Are we really stressing and pushing the limits of what we're going to be able to do in that situation?
When you talk about catastrophic events and you look at the landscape of what's around us, let's just take Milton. Let's take what would happen, and you look at the map of where the hurricane's coming. If you've never seen this, you really need to pay attention to whatever you believe in has happened. Brevard County had a little splurge on Cocoa Beach, and think of whatever happened is what it is on the tornadoes. You look about all our brothers and sisters and families and communities around us and what they had to deal with, and how that was dragged through the United States of America all the way to North Carolina and what they're dealing with. We would have to, in the union's opinion, based on what I know in my 22 years experience, the first thing we would do is make a phone call to other resources and ask for help. And we do that. We've asked that when we got into the ability to be a union. When I first got in here, we made a huge push to our management and to the people who are policymakers. And he said, look, the problem we have right now is we don't deploy. We don't participate in these mental health issues. We don't have the cadaver dogs. We don't participate in the community. So when there's an event happening at Marion County, there's a handful, well, we don't have the resources. What do we need to send a truck out there? We're Brevard County. Because we're going to ask for their help. And they're going to be like, well, you didn't give us. Well, we're shy. So what you're doing is you're keeping Brevard so lean that you have no expectation that you can offer a helping hand to someone else, but you absolutely intend to ask everybody for a helping hand. And that can't be any more evident than an opportunity, and I'm going to take this opportunity to say that, is nowhere in my world would there ever be a conversation that says, because you're not from Brevard County, you're an acceptable person to drown in the Atlantic Ocean.
Right.
That is not part of the equation.
Yet that's basically what was implied when the lifeguard issue came up, was it not? So we had a lifeguard issue that came up, and the county chose not to fund, what was it? Was there a certain percentage of the lifeguards? I think it was like 60 something percent. I think it was around it in that area. And so then there was a battle over, because the county actually takes advantage of the tourism tax, which some of the cities were contending that you should use that money on the lifeguards, but they decided they didn't want to do it. And so then there's another question: where's that money going? Right?
Half of it's going to marketing.
For what?
I don't know if there's anybody on the east coast of the United States that doesn't know what Cocoa Beach is.
I don't know that this is an area that you really have to market. I think it's people are coming here by the droves on their own. It's just really an interesting thing. And so now the lifeguards, and there was a big issue back a few months ago with the city of Cocoa Beach and other cities that were really livid at the county's response to this. And they're okay with the fact that there are swaths now of the ocean where there's not lifeguards. I'm correct in that, right?
I think they ended up funding the lifeguard after a lot of back and forth.
I think there was a resolution. I'd like to take the opportunity, Kevin, to clarify one aspect of this, though. Out of the other segments of this series that you've invited us to talk about, in the realm of ocean rescue in emergencies, just because you don't fund the lifeguard doesn't mean there's a need for first responders. Someone is going to call 911. A bystander will jump in the ocean and pull someone out of the ocean. Brevard County Fire Rescue will send that rescue, that ambulance, with a paramedic on there to respond to save their life. Just because it's not funded or just because there's a conversation or a fight between the city and the county doesn't mean that Brevard County Fire Rescue is going to say, well, you didn't do. No, we're going. We go 100% of the time. We do 100%, 10% of the job. And that right there is the disconnect. That you asked for an example and you brought it up, so I wanted to volunteer that example. Where is that example of doing more? That's one example right there. And we could do this all day, but that's one example right there.
It's one more high hazard situation for our crews as well.
So what is the thinking among the firefighters and the paramedics about why we're in this situation? Are they perplexed about it? Do they not understand why? Is there's some perplexity about why they're not getting compensated for what they do? Is the morale low?
That last part I will answer. Morale is a metric. There's plenty of studies, there's plenty of books, there's plenty of studies that are in the county that I had to read and use those studies to promote as a lieutenant. So we know the county's aware of these books and teachings and leadership seminars. Morale is a metric. It's accepted, at least in the fire service, as a metric. Morale is as low as it could possibly be for Brevard County Fire Rescue for many multiple reasons. My opinion is we can say right now is a valued employee. That was discussed in 2021, so I'm just going to follow suit on the back of something I've already said. The value of the employee, the ask of the employee, what needs to happen to provide an expected service to the citizens, visitors, taxpayers of Brevard County. And we don't have this. We just want to do our job. Give us the fire trucks, give us the people, give us the protocol. Let us save people's lives and do what we signed up to do. Give us the resources. It's not just one or two or three. It's the whole enchilada.
So what are you asking for, Mike? And so you would probably have people with the county that says you're asking for the world. What are you asking for? What do you need that would put you in a situation where you guys would be absolutely satisfied to move forward in order to break this resolution or to come to a resolution?
Those are two different questions. I can't answer that second part of that question.
Okay.
I'm not going to answer and I can't answer that, and there's details about it. But the first part of the question is a little loaded. And I think it should be identified, at least for the respect of the men and women, boys and girls, everybody who's looking and listening to their community, is you come, you live, you do whatever, you open a business in Brevard County, and something bad happens. It's unexpected, it's unpredictable, and you call 911. The people of Brevard County deserve a level of service equal to that expected by the citizens to what is the standard in Florida or in our area or adjacent to us. That's what we want to provide. There's a cost to that, yes. There's an expansion to the services available, yes. There is political relationships that need to be mended and changed and moved around, yes. All of that, Kevin and Katie, and none of that has to do with my position as a whole. The public safety advocate. An advocate for public safety is the union presence. One of the job things is to be an advocate of public safety, and that's what I'm here to do, is to say that public safety crisis, the need for us to move forward to allow that when you call 911, there's a professional, trained, experienced provider to go up to your house to give you those services to overcome that need is what is needed. That solves this.
Now, you're ranked as far as the county fire departments, you rank where?
I'm a lieutenant paramedic.
I mean, but as far as the Brevard County Fire and Rescue, you guys rank where?
The county, last document is the county is the 10th most populous county. We're probably out of 67 counties. Now, there's certain fire districts, so it's a little bit weird, but let's just talk about counties. We would say we're the 10th most populous and the 10th least funded on the bottom of the spectrum. We're somewhere in the top, let's say 20% of the size of the fire department. We're a big fire department for the state of Florida. Very big fire department. We should be offering fantastic services. Very much level. You look at way bigger than like Seminole County as far as the services. You're going to talk about services provided per capita. You're going to get into a whole nother weeds. But I think that's an important question to ask. I think that's a very important question to ask policymakers.
And so, as far as the Miami-Dade, one of the more attractive places to go as far as the firefighters in Florida, that they're attracting a lot of people.
At one point, sure.
So you guys are losing. You are basically the training ground for a lot of the fire departments around the surrounding counties who are saying, "Thank you very much. We'll take your firefighters and your paramedics."
That's no secret. I mean, that is easily something that you can obtain anywhere. You can even go to the internal schools. You can go to the colleges that train people here and says, Brevard County, you could go on the internet, you can go wherever you want to do. And it's not exclusive anywhere. People move anywhere they do. They are an asset. I have a lot of people who don't like me to use that word when you talk about people, but if you're a firefighter, paramedic in the state of Florida, and there's going to be some statistics that are up and down with the state fire marshals about how we do things, but since COVID, since the things that happened, and the biggest problem with COVID isn't COVID. The problem with COVID is the neglect of what people did to themselves. They didn't go to the doctors. Didn't take care of their hearts. They didn't take care of their cholesterol. Now we're out of COVID and we're reaping the problems, and now we have this economic thing. And I get the irony of me being a union president talking about economic strain. Mm-hmm. But you also got to think that we're also that component of people who don't have means. We're their conduit for medical care. Mm-hmm. It may not be popular in Brevard County. It may not be aligned politically to say this is what it is. But I'm a union president. I'm here to tell you that is the reality. You're not going to be able to be political out of that. People do require us, public servants, that sometimes there's their medical care. That's why there's a sign about labor in every hospital. Can't be denied care. And that is the problem. And it's not Miami-Dade, as you said. It's not exclusive anywhere. You couldn't track it. You couldn't put it on a map. It's so grandeur that people move here, and sometimes they move 3 or 4 times. Sometimes they're like, hey, I'm just going to chase some money. Mm-hmm. And that's because a firefighter, paramedic in the state of Florida, just like the nurses were way back in the Great Recession, they're an asset. We don't have enough people coming out of fire school. We don't have enough people interested in this job to fill the existing positions, let alone meet the needs of the growth. Let alone keep that professionalism, the standard of care, or the delivery of service to what people expect. So should we degrade our services? Should people not be able to survive things that people were dying 20 years ago? Do we come full circle and says, we're going to write you off? We're not going to provide that experienced paramedic care because we don't want to spend the money. We don't want to create the training. We don't want to retain these employees. I don't think that's fair to the citizens of Brevard County.
So where did it start? Where did this start with the emphasis of holding these first responders in high regard as far as making sure that they're adequately paid? Where did this start in Brevard County? And it's not always been that way, right?
I'm going to parallel the story because you're flirting with some good things here. At some point, in my opinion, in a lot of studies, there's a lot of good things coming out of this. At some point, it was about the job. And somehow it became the need for the job. And I don't know when that was. It was definitely within my career. And at some point it came to the fact that it became an expected service. Delivery of service is the problem, not the standard of care, not the delivery, not the standard of service, but the delivery of service. How do I get the product to you? How do I get that? That's what it came to be. And it became a level of expectation. I deserve this. I need this. I should have this. I'm not in a position to say that that person's wrong. Should that person have an event, an EMS event? Should they have an event where they're in a car accident? Should they be able to survive that event? And in a lot of these things, if you really go back in history, you talk about fire services, you talk about tax collecting, you talk about some places that says, union houses We know we can't do that anymore. You have, do they pay taxes? Do they pay for a service? Do we have privatization of fire departments? And then you get into the moral compass of, hey, you have a problem and you ask me for help. That's the end of the conversation. Then we start talking about what's the problem. That's where it came, is the expectation of the delivery of service. Everybody wants it, everybody needs it, and I think everybody deserves it. If you have a problem, you call 911, boom, we're there. That's the paradigm shift you're asking about. Where it came to as a profession, where it became lucrative to become a firefighter. I think they're all intertwined. I don't know. It's a fantastic question. I don't think anybody's ever researched it, because I don't think people are asking these hard questions.
So, I mean, you raise a point that's really an important point, that one of the things that you guys are providing basically is health care for a lot of people, residents in Brevard County, because they don't have health care. And so you are the healthcare. You encounter a lot of people, and I would ask you, and just off the top of your head, what would be the percentage of calls that are based upon that?
I don't want to get into that, because you're going to get into billings, welfares, you're going to get into some political stuff that I don't think we need to really talk about. I just
But
think
it is an issue.
absolutely is an issue, and it's for the policymakers, and it gets into the national scan. You get in Medicare, Medicaid, you get into so many different layers on that. At our level, we just want to do the job. If you want to get into the political world and you get people like Katie, and they're going to push things, you get people in DC, you get people in Tallahassee, and they make changes so people can have that becomes political, because then you're talking about all these other aspects. All I want to do is, if you have a problem and you call for help, I want to get you that help. And I want it to be professional, and I want it to be something that you survive, and it gets you to where you need to be.
Okay.
And it's safe.
Okay, I'm going to be Frank Abate for today, Mike. And I'm going to tell you that I can get you 140 new employees for this next year, 2025. Is that going to be good? No. What if I got you 8 new ambulances and 150 employees? Are we good? No. What else are we going to need in order to be able to put the fire department in a position where you're doing the service that you need to do for the residents of Brevard County?
We know, based on the existing studies, that anywhere from 6 to 8 ambulances based on call volume. And there's other ways to do studies. There are other studies out there that show different needs, GIS studies, heat models. There's a lot of type of things. Being someone in the position that we are in now, it probably starts with another study. I don't know how to do that. People are running for these committees. We have an election. I don't know when this is going to air, but there's an election. You need to know, you don't know what you don't know. And you don't know what you need until you make that assessment. And you don't know what level of service you need till you get there. We do know that there are things that could have happened in the fire department for Brevard County Fire Rescue that never came to fruition, that probably should be revisited. Floaters positions, all these other type of things. We also know that other fire departments are expanding, and so are we. Being able to be trained and collapse. We're doing these things. We're trying to do these things. We're running it as fast as we can, once again, with the resources available to be able to provide the services after the tragedy down south with the collapse. We're trying to get there. But every time we always come up short. We're always 1 yard short. We're always short. So the answer to your question is another question. The question at hand, I think, is, what does the county, in any form, either the commissioners, the taxpayers, the citizens, the cities, because we provide services to the cities. The cities are a customer of Brevard County Fire Rescue. What do they think is happening, and what is expected of Brevard County to provide public service of safety? If we had that input, if we knew what the expectation is, if we knew what it was, then you could create the formulas, and then we can start working. So I think we start asking the hard question is, what is the expectation of, in any form? Does the commissioner dictate that? Is there a committee? I don't know the answer to the question, but I think, as you pointed out earlier, no one's asked that hard question.
Katie, one of the problems here with the impasse, and it just seems that the county commissioners were actually voted in by the people to deal with issues, and they seem to be absent on this issue. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're not wrong at all.
So what do you see could happen? What needs to happen in order to solve this impasse?
I think that the community needs to decide how important public safety is for their own lives. When it's their child that, God forbid, is in a pool, when it's their grandmother that, doesn't wake up, when it's their father that falls in the bathroom, what is that worth to you to make sure that these people are experienced, they're trained, and they get there in the best way that they can to have the best outcome as possible? How important is that to people? And then the commissioners need to do their job and make sure that they're getting that input from the public. They're doing the studies to see what the fire department needs and then prioritizing that. That is our number one function of government, is to make sure that we have strong public safety.
Are you surprised that there's not been more commissioner involvement?
Absolutely.
Do you think that they're relying upon staff to do this and the attorney to take care of these negotiations and to make it happen?
I can't really speak to what they think, or because they haven't said what they think. But from what I've seen, I'm horrified. I'm horrified by the fact that we have that the commissioners are not the ones negotiating. I'm horrified that our county manager isn't negotiating. I'm horrified that our county attorney isn't negotiating. I'm horrified that we have a third party attorney who lives in Orlando that we're paying extra money to show up and be frankly rude to our people. And we need to do better.
Okay, I think that we've run out of time for this edition, and you've been listening to Brevard News Focus, and we've tried to bring you some information about the Brevard County Fire and Rescue and their plight, and there's a lot of moving parts to it, and you, the Brevard citizens, are going to actually be the answer to this. And we're going to put up a number at the end of our broadcast, and hopefully you can contact your county commissioner and let them know your opinion about this and maybe apply some pressure to get this deal done so that we have adequate service in Brevard County. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our podcast and Brevard News. And we're thankful that you joined us. You have a wonderful week.